Fox 56 News. With Bodie Brooks, this is Red, White, and Bluegrass.
Welcome in on this mid-October Sunday morning. I'm Bodie Brooks. Thanks for joining us for this week's Red, White, and Bluegrass. It's the place each week that we focus on the government and political issues of the day with some spirited but respectful debate. And here to help us navigate this week's issues is Trey Wisney. He's a Republican strategist and the former spokesperson of the Republican Party of Kentucky. He's also founder of Capital Reigns PR and one of the hosts of the Kentucky Politics Weekly podcast. Also a big first-time welcome to Morgan Eaves. She's been the executive director of the Kentucky Democratic Party, managing the day-to-day operations of the party for nearly 2 years. She's also a former Richmond City Commissioner. We're happy to have you both here and look forward to some good conversation with you both.
Great to be back.
So where are we headed this week? The RWB roadmap drives straight to the nation's capital. 2 new polls in the race to fill Mitch McConnell's seat in the U.S. Senate were released this week. Also, we get an updated look at the financial health of Kentucky's federal candidates with new campaign finance reports. And with all that new information, we'll talk about the timing of a campaign that's still more than 6 months away from primary election day. So let's begin. 2 polls came out this week on the closely watched GOP primary and Kentucky's Senate race, both commissioned internally, one by Daniel Cameron's campaign and the other by Andy Barr's. And Cameron's sample of 911 likely general election voters, the former attorney general held a double-digit advantage over his Republican rivals, Congressman Andy Barr and businessman Nate Morris. This next set of numbers from the Barr campaign are telling the same story. A sample of 600 GOP primary voters, former Attorney General Cameron holds a comfortable lead over Congressman Barr, and businessman Nate Morris is in third, not quite making a dent.
Daniel Cameron is still reaping the rewards of the work he already did to build up a name across the state. There's very little they're likely doing that could cause Nate Morris to poll as low as he has so far. In other words, there are errors in internal polls. They usually favor the candidate who paid for them. They're not usually massive.
University of Kentucky political science professor Stephen Voss told me this week that despite the different methodology between these polls, the fact they're both essentially saying the same thing underscores his analysis that these internal polls tend to be closer to the truth than most people think. So Morgan, I'm going to start with you here. You kind of have a challenge coming at this from a Democratic perspective, but first, any surprises to you in these numbers?
No. Former Attorney General Cameron obviously has the lead in terms of name ID and recognizability. He's been across the state before. Andy Barr has really just been positioned to one area of the state, not as well known. I think the timing of the release of Cameron's poll was really interesting because he released it right before the FEC report and his fundraising numbers came out, and he knew that they were going to be low and not as high as Andy Barr's. So he really wanted to kind of put a good media moment out there, and he did. Obviously, it got picked up, but the numbers aren't a surprise.
Trey, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's about what you'd expect it to be. The number that's, if I'm the Nate Morris campaign, I'm concerned. Not shown on the graph there. The Andy Barr poll, I don't believe, released favorable, unfavorable numbers. The Cameron campaign did, and Nate Morris was underwater. You know, usually on a campaign, usually you air positive ads first, because when you go up, and then when you hit negative, you drop a little bit, and the plan is for your opponents to drop more than you. Well, when you're starting at almost zero, there's nowhere else to go but down. And the question is, has Nate Morris dug a negative hole that he's going to have a hard time getting out of? If I was his team, if I was especially the outside groups, I would be screaming for the mountaintops. Everything go positive. Pull everything negative. Nate Morris needs to go positive, positive, positive as hard as he can, because he has the money, both internally in the campaign and the outside groups, to be able to kind of come back and get those positive name ID numbers up. But they're still running negative stuff. If I were him, I would look at this with alarm bells and switch everything to positive, at least for a month or 2.
And I think there's already been a positive PAC ad that's hit the airwaves. And that kind of leads to where I was going to go next. What's working for these candidates and what isn't? What do you think Andy Barr should be doing, considering he's sort of in the middle here with a comfortable space between both Morris and Cameron?
You know, he should be getting out more. He should be getting out into the state more, because clearly his name ID is low. I think to Trey's point, the thing that people know about Nate Morris is what he doesn't believe in, who he does not like. They don't know anything else about him other than he has a lot of money to throw at his campaign. I agree with Trey. I think probably the discrepancy is too large. He can't make up for it. But if I'm Andy Barr or any candidate who looks at those numbers, I'm going to be doing everything I can to raise my name ID and get myself in front of as many voters as I can.
And Barr's in a position to run the most traditional of the campaign of the 3, which is the campaign does positive, positive, positive. The super PAC outside groups, they stay negative. You already see Barr's up with positive name ID stuff, talking about what he's done in Congress. He's going to support Trump, yada, yada, yada. The negative, the outside groups for Barr are still negative on Nate. So he's got the, if I were going to be anybody in this race, I would probably want to be Barr because he has the room to grow. And it looks like he can because he knows where he needs to go to get name ID, especially the East, Northern Kentucky, Far West, Louisville, 6th District. He's good. And he has the money to do it. Cameron doesn't have the money to really make many moves, and Morris has a long way to go, even though he has the money to get there. The problem for Morris is the one thing you can't get more of in politics is time. I think Barr has enough time and enough money in the campaign to be able to do the things that he needs to do to be able to catch back up and even those numbers with Cameron.
How many of these voters do you think are already locked in for Cameron that may not be up for grabs?
I think there's a lot of voters who are comfortable with Cameron because they know him. The question is that I can't answer is how many of them, once they get to know the other two candidates, they'd be willing to move off of Daniel Cameron. You know, so that just comes with name ID, and we'll see as the numbers get up there and people learn more about the other two, especially Barr. You know, because he's probably the closest to Cameron when it comes to political agenda, kind of political profile, all that. You know, as there's a comfort level developed with knowing who Congressman Barr is, are those people going to be okay with moving off of Cameron to Barr?
Morgan, last word on this. How long do you think Cameron can ride those numbers?
Oh, you know, I think it depends what his money does. If he can get his fundraising up, then he can probably grow. If not, I think you'll see a gain in Barr.